morning, connection. Welcome to Spirit and Truth Sanctuary. Happy Tuesday. And it is a happy Tuesday, a happy day, no matter what is going on around us or has happened. I know some tragic events took place last night again in our country. Not in our city this time, but somewhere else. But we have learned and are continuing to learn that our happiness and our peace is not dependent upon external events. It is dependent upon our connection with our source. So we're going to begin this morning with our morning blessing. Spirit of Truth, we thank you for this new day in which we are filled with gratitude. We are grateful for another day to live out our lives in freedom, in happiness, and in joy. We give thanks to you for both the tangible and intangible daily bread that you provide for us. We live and move and have our being in the perfect, unconditional love that lives in our heart. We are grateful now for that which we have already received and are grateful in advance for more than we can ask or think coming into our lives on a daily basis. We commit ourselves today and every day this year to get happy, be happy, and stay happy, and see what happens in the name and nature of the Christ. Amen, and so it is. Okay, on to our quotes. The first one, a flower does not think of competing with the flower next to it. It just blooms. That's from a person named Jin Shin, or at least that's what it was attributed to. I'm not sure if that's a person or a website. Okay, next, negative energy gnaws at the soul like a dripping tap. Time to tighten up the plumbing. And that quote was by a woman named Fiona Hutton. This weekend we had several experiences at our house with plumbing. Our dishwasher conked out about a week ago, and so my husband was trying to install a new dishwasher. And when the man came to kind of give him some help, we realized that the part of our plumbing, both upstairs and downstairs, which we ended up having to have somebody else come out the downstairs, part of our plumbing is done in such a way that the water has to be pushed up rather than down. And so as one of the plumbers who was at our house trying to help us tried to delicately tell us, basically he was saying, poop doesn't flow uphill. It goes down. So you have to make sure that your pipes are going in a downward direction if you want things to flow smoothly. So my analogy there is, in reference to this quote, when we come up against negative energy, when negative energy shows up in our lives, it doesn't really help a lot to fight and resist and try to go uphill with it. Just let it flow. Let it go, okay? So that's a good thing to remember. Poop does not run uphill. You got to just let that go or tighten up the plumbing, because the other point is it says the little slow drip sometimes is just as bad as a huge gush. Sometimes we don't even realize that these little negative things that are affecting us, it's easy to recognize when the big negative things happen. So we can kind of guard against it, or our coping mechanisms kick in immediately. But when it's just this little drip, it's so subtle sometimes that we don't even realize what's happening. But little drips are just as draining on our energy as big gushes and explosions. So that's what we need to take from that quote. So next quote, sometimes the only view is the alternative. And this quote was superimposed on a picture of a girl whose head was upside down. And you'll understand why in a second. It says, sometimes the only view is the alternative. Looking at something head on only ever gives one dimension of an image. Changing perspective often gives the whole view in all dimensions. Okay, so that was also by Fiona Hutton. And that's a good example of this one is the difference between the masculine and the feminine energy. I'll give you an example. The masculine energy, just like we talked about in that quote previously, is fighting it, attacking things head on, conquering things. Feminine energy doesn't approach things head on very often. It can, but it's not its go-to, because Over the years, feminine energy has come to understand we're not strong enough in that sense of the word strength to do that. So necessarily, over the course of our evolution, the feminine energy has had to come up with what is known as workarounds, okay? So, which involves changing perspective and coming at a problem from a different angle than straight on. There's a good example of this even in the way our bodies are made. I didn't know this until a while back, but if you look at a man's arm and a woman's arm, they're very different because men's biceps are much bigger than women's. And so when they lift things straight up because they're using the strength of their bicep. Someone told me a long time ago, I forget where I saw it, but women's arms are not straight. They have kind of a curve to them, and that's because when we pick things up, we're not using solely the strength of our bicep. We're using leverage to pick up, which is why our arms kind of bend out where men's do not. So, quick little lesson in the difference between masculine and feminine energy. Also, this is why it's a more feminine characteristic to cooperate with others, because over the years, over the centuries, we've had to learn to combine our strength with that of our neighbors in order to get something accomplished. We're not always trying to fight everything alone and do it ourselves as much as the masculine energy is. All right, so those were the first two quotes, or maybe the first three. Lastly, this one is from a woman named Jessica Betts. She says, I hope that you become filled with so much happiness that it heals every part of you. That is a lovely quote and is a reminder of one more positive thing that happiness does for us. It heals us. Happiness as healer. Perhaps we'll explore that topic a little bit one day soon. Okay, so today is going to be a little different. We're going to have some fun, and we're going to explore some things that some of you might not be very familiar with or familiar with at all. And part of our exploration is going to be looking at several different healing modalities from different, not religions, but from different thought streams. But it's similar to religion because there is similar information in each. The approach each takes is just a little different. Kind of like one of our quotes today. Sometimes you need to shift the perspective and look at the same thing from a little different angle. I've taught before the concept of my husband one year when I was stressing out over wrapping Christmas presents, he said, just turn the present around and it'll fit right. So also it's kind of like the fact that most all religions, as we know, contain some form of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do to you, which we've talked about many times. It's just stated a little bit differently in each religion. So that's everything I talk about today is going to be basically the same concept, just coming at it from a little different angle. But nothing I say is set in stone. As always, eat what you can. Use what you find useful to you, what resonates with you. If it doesn't resonate with you, just say, that's an interesting way to look at it. And take it home in a doggy bag or throw it away immediately with whatever you want to do. Also, something that's going to be a little bit different today is usually I'm pretty organized and I almost have my teaching written out word for word because in my heart I am a writer first before I'm a speaker. But in an effort to loosen up a little bit and try something new, get myself out of my comfort zone, today is going to be more a little bit of just an outline. So I might not have the words right at my fingertips as I usually do, and if it flops, I'm going to go back next week to the way I used to do it. But I just wanted to try something a little bit different today. So I wanted to begin first by giving you my title, which is a COVID era inspired title. My title today is Wash Your Hands. We're having that instruction given to us a whole lot these days, and surprise, I found something symbolic in it as well as literal. So I want to begin by telling you a little story about my younger son. Years ago, when one of the first years that I was in charge of children's ministry, I was very, very serious about children. Well, I was always serious about it, but when you first start something and it's new to you, you're very uptight. I was very uptight about it. And so it was very big at that point. We had many volunteers who came in to help me do the teaching on Sunday. And so all through the week, I would get these teachings ready, and I would put everything in this little packet and leave it in the Sunday school room. And so I was very concerned at the end of the service on Sunday of whether or not, how it went in each class. So I would often ask both of my boys, because they were in different classes, they were 5 years apart, well, what did you learn today? Because I was trying to see if, it got across. So I guess Naboth was about 4 or 5 years old, maybe 4. And I said, and the teaching that day was about the fivefold ministry. And so the activity was they were supposed to put their hand down on a piece of construction paper, trace it out, and then learn about the pastor, evangelist, teacher, preacher, all of that. So I wanted to know if the information had gotten through to him. And I said, Nabe, what did you learn in Sunday school today? And he says, Mom, we made a hand. I said, yeah, I know you made a hand. I said, but what was it about? What did the hand stand for? And he hawed around for a little bit, and I kept trying to give him hints. And finally, I could tell I was being a little too aggressive with my questioning, because he was in the seat next to me in the car, and he just slumped his little shoulders and gave a big sigh, and he says, Mom, I don't have no idea what the lesson was about. All I know is we made a hand. And so, we're going to talk about hands today. I just thought that story just came to my mind as I thought about this lesson, about how sometimes we get so uptight about things, and it's like Mom. I just see his little face now saying, Mom, I have no idea what the lesson was about. I just know we made a hand. So if all you get from this lesson today is that we're talking about hands, that's fine. But we're going to talk about hands today, both literally and metaphorically / symbolically. So we have 2 hands, which immediately speaks of balance. And we often use them as metaphors or symbols that represent extreme opposites of the spectrum. A lot of the time we associate the left hand, the left side, with our feminine characteristics, and our right side with our masculine characteristics. Now, funny side note here, it switches when we get to the brain, because in our brain, the left side of our brain is the more logical, concrete thinking side, and the right side is our artistic, chaotic, artsy, fartsy, for lack of a better term, side of the brain. So that's interesting that there is a crossover in our energy there between our body and our brain. All right, another fact about our hands is that we have opposable thumbs, and opposable thumbs give humans and other animals that have them. There are a few other species of animals, apes, and that have. It gives us the ability to grasp things. Now, again, there's a little bit of symbolism there. We grasp things physically, and also I think the animals that are in that order who have the opposable thumbs, we have the ability to grasp higher knowledge. If you'll look pretty much across the animal kingdom, the animals that don't have opposable thumbs, their lives are run more by their instinct alone. When you get up into the animals that have opposable thumbs, that's when the logic starts kicking in. The more logic, that is directly correlated with animals who have opposable thumbs, because we can use things to our advantage. So, over the course of human evolution, one of the most important developments has been this development of the opposable, or what they call prehensile thumbs. Subsequently, along with walking upright, where we could use our upper limbs for doing other things than walking, and stereoscopic vision, the opposable thumb was a major influence in the rapid evolutionary development of the human brain and intellect. Almost everything we do as humans, as human beings, involves the use of our opposable thumbs. So, our hands being different in that way from a lot of other creatures in the animal kingdom is one of the things that has given us an advantage, evolutionarily speaking. So, all right, so we've covered that part of hands from an evolutionary standpoint. Now, there are also, let's move on now to the Bible. There are a plethora of biblical references to hands, many in the Old Testament, in the book of Leviticus in particular, in connection with the practice of animal sacrifice. such as, then he presented to the Lord the ram for burnt offering. Aaron and his sons laid their hands upon its head. So the priest would lay their hands on the head of the animal before it was sacrificed. All this was placed in the hands of Aaron and his sons to present to the Lord by a gesture of waving them before the altar. Another scripture, if the defiled man touches anyone without first rinsing his hands, that person must wash his clothes and bathe himself and be defiled until evening. So having clean hands was very important in the Old Testament. Also, the priest laying both hands upon its head and confessing over it all the sins of the people of Israel, he shall lay their sins upon the head of the goat. Now, this was a practice that the high priest did every year with a goat, where he specifically, symbolically transmuted all the sins of the people of Israel onto this goat, and then they sacrificed the goat, symbolizing, the forgiveness of those sins. That is where we get the term scapegoat from, somebody that takes the blame for something. All right? Hands in the Bible also were used for blessings. Moses laid his hands upon him and dedicated him to his responsibilities as the Lord had commanded. They are also used to talk about the outcome or the results of a war. You must destroy all the nations the Lord God delivers into your hands. It also says he will deliver the kings into your hands. The Bible references us using our hands to praise, okay? When it talks about lifting up holy hands to God, we even have a song about it. We lift our hands in the sanctuary. Okay, so we also use our hands to entreat, like in the verse, Lord, I lift my hands to heaven to implore your help. It's a way that we ask God for help. The Bible speaks of using our hands to pray. This is one of the most common hand forms ever, hand positions in the prayer position. It says, little children were brought to Jesus to lay his hands on them and pray. I will bless you as long as I live, lifting up my hands to you in prayer. All night long I pray, lifting my hands to heaven, pleading. We also use them to command. With my hands I have stretched out the heavens and commanded all the vast myriads of stars. Hands are also used to reference control. For the time has come for me to avenge my people, to redeem them from the hands of their oppressors. Okay, so the concept of hands, if you're under someone's hand or under their thumb, it's used to show if someone is in control of you. Yes, I will certainly deliver you from these wicked men and rescue you from their ruthless hands. And lastly, hands are also used in the Bible to heal. There are references to physical healings as well as spiritual healings. Then Jesus placed his hands over the man's eyes again, and as the man stared intently, his sight was completely restored, and he saw everything clearly, drinking in the sights around him. Another scripture, the villagers brought their sick to Jesus, and the touch of his hands healed everyone. As well as spiritual healing, then Peter and John laid their hands upon those believers and they received the Holy Spirit. So, the subject of hands and the things we use them for is all throughout the Bible, but not just in the Bible. Our everyday language is also full of hand references. We talk about people who take the law into their own hands when they don't follow the laws of the land. We say things like, I wash my hands of it when we're done with something. Or we say, my hands are clean when you know you haven't done anything wrong. Or we talk about there being blood on our hands or somebody else's hands when they have done something. We use our hands to create. We use our hands to give and receive. We use our hands to hug, to greet each other, shake hands, not in a while, but usually we use our hands to greet each other. We say things like we're walking with someone hand in hand. We talk about two things, like two ideas fitting together hand in hand, or we talk about something being hand in glove when it fits together nicely. We talk about all hands on deck with helpers, or we call somebody a ranch hand or a farm hand who is an assistant. We join hands when we come together to solve problems that face us. Joining hands together is a huge part of the marriage ceremony, symbolizing that we are joining our hearts, our spirits, our lives. We talk about we also use it as a term of responsibility. I'm putting this in your hands, or I'm taking this out of your hands. Or we say things like, this is in God's hands, or it's out of my hands. So I bet you didn't know how much we use these references to our hands. We talk about being in the palm of God's hands. If you rub your hands together, it creates friction, and you can actually feel the heat and the energy. So hands are very, very, very important in our human life. I was listening to a video by a woman named Barbara Goldsmith the other day, and she was talking about hands, and she was posing some questions. She said, how are we using our hands? To fight one another, or to heal one another and lift one another up? Let's be conscious of using our hands wisely and become more conscious of the energy our hands hold, knowing that what you send out through your hands has a huge effect on the collective field of consciousness. Now, I want to stop here and talk for a minute about this symbolism. Our thoughts that we send out, that is symbolized by our mind, or up here we think about our head when we think about the thoughts we send into the collective. Or the words that we speak into the collective, we usually think about our mouths. But our actions, that are also things we send out into the collective, we think about our hands. So that is the symbolism of our action, is our hands. All right, so another thing that she mentioned in this video, not being able to receive help is a masculine characteristic. So she was talking about, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help if you need it. Another question she said, are we using our hands to push others away or to pull them in? You know how, I don't remember how many years ago this became a common phrase, but when you didn't want to be bothered, talk to the hand. Okay, that's another signal we use our hands in. So are we using our hands and our body language to push people away or to invite them in? Hands are so expressive. And then she listed some things that she likes to do with her hands that we can all do with our hands. Playing in the dirt, planting, building, writing, painting, sewing, weaving, sculpting, petting animals, kneading bread, joining hands with others, and tapping. I've talked about that before, the emotional freedom technique of tapping to kind of loosen up your emotions. All right, so again, she also brings in the whole balance of the masculine and feminine, or just one side and another. That's another phrase we use. On the one hand, there's this. On the other hand, and so we use it as this term to create or to define balance between two things. If this hand doesn't work, then try the other hand. We also talked about the hand life deals us. So, and that we have, we have to play with the hand that we are dealt. Very often, people who work a lot with their hands live to a very ripe old age. That's been proven. If you work a lot with your hands, you tend to live longer. Maybe this is because when you work with your hands, you have figured out the balance of life a little bit better. We use our hands both to hold on to things and to let things go. There's all kind of hand signals. We say hi, we say thumbs up, we say peace, we say it's okay. We use our hands to clap for people, applause, or to keep the beat of music. We use our hands to tell people how many something is. Stop, come here. I know my husband, he works in construction, so he's always around a lot of loud equipment, and when they want somebody to stop, they can't scream stop, they just do this. That means stop. So we can also speak an entire language with our hands. Deaf people use sign language. They cannot speak, and they have an entire language literally at their fingertips, and they speak with their hands. So over the past year, there has been a particular emphasis on washing our hands because of the virus. And we are being asked to pay special attention to our hands, all that they do, and their very energy. And here I think, again, this is symbolic, and this is a metaphor for the collective. We have been asked to clean not only our physical hands, but the energy of what our hands do. Maybe we've been using our hands thoughtlessly. Maybe we have been using our hands too much to point our fingers at other people, blaming people. Maybe we've been using our hands too much, clenched fist, fighting each other. So maybe that's the symbolic meaning of not just wash your physical hands, but symbolically, metaphorically, energetically, wash your hands and pay attention to your actions. The actions you are putting out into the collective matter. So let's pay attention to washing or cleansing, purging our hands and the actions we commit with them. All right, Barbara Goldsmith, quoted another woman named Ann Dawn in her video. She says, "Our troubled world today needs hands, helping, giving, loving, caring hands. We need a lot of them. Coming together, not fingers pointing. There are far too many of those. Instead, we need hands that ask, how can I help? What can I do for you?" And so then she mentioned some other things, which a lot of them we've gone over before with the biblical references about the prayer hands, lifting the hands in praise, hands laid on for healing. And it's not just, we who have been raised in the Christian tradition often think the only time we think about laying on of hands in a healing mode is when we come down to an altar. But there are also things like Reiki, if you're familiar with that, which is when someone moves your energy with their hands. There's a massage, chiropractic, reflexology, acupressure, and also there's something called mudras that you may or may not be familiar with. Now, I'm going to talk about what mudras are, but first I want to explain a concept called permission slips. In the Christian tradition, we have what I like to call permission slips. And that means we have these rituals that we perform, or these points of contact that help us connect to God, but there's no power in and of themselves in the ritual or in the point. It's just a way we open up our energy and connect to God. We give ourselves permission to get ourselves in a certain mindset. So that's not just with, and I'll give you some examples of them. Singing, when we come into a church service, singing is a point of contact. That's a permission slip we give ourselves to praise God. Praying is another permission slip. Water baptism, communion, anointing oil, laying on hands. But so someone who has not been raised in the Christian tradition might come in and find those things kind of odd when they're very normal to us, but the only reason they're normal to us is because we've grown up with them. Someone who was raised in a different tradition, something might seem very weird to us that they do, but all of it is the same thing. It's just a point of contact that we use, such as crystals, okay? There's no power in crystals or any kind of statue or other icon in any religion. There's no power in a statue of the Buddha. All it is a permission slip we give ourselves to make contact with Source or God. Okay, so that's what mudras are, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about mudras, okay? According to ancient Vedic wisdom, your health is literally in your hands. This is because your forefingers and thumb represent the 5 major building blocks of which the entire universe is made. Sky or ether, which is invisible matter, air, fire, water, and earth. Disease emerges when these 5 elements are out of balance. So your thumb represents fire, your index finger represents air, your middle finger represents the space or the ether, your fourth or your ring finger represents earth, and your pinky finger represents water. Mudras are specific methods of touching and aligning fingers with each other. According to this practice, mudras should be held for at least 10 to 15 minutes at a time and repeated 3 to 4 times a day for good results. Now, as we know again, I think my brother spoke about it a couple weeks ago. Once he had been delivered of all the doctrine of Christianity, he went to speak at a New Thought church, and someone in the congregation took it upon themselves to correct him about the way he was holding his hands during meditation. And he's like, look, I didn't leave all this literalism from one religion just to get into it in another. So, yes, what I'm saying here about these mudras, even when it says you have to do it for 15 minutes, 3 to 4, you don't. That's just what they recommend. You can do it however you want to. These are, again, they're just permission slips. They're just a way that you get yourself, your consciousness into the groove of healing. All right, says these are recommended for the relief of all sorts of maladies, from ear problems to concentration issues, depression, heart disease, asthma, blood diseases, skin diseases, nervousness, eye problems, obesity, high cholesterol, joint pain, stomach issues. You can do them for peace of mind and to have more energy. The most common one that most of us are familiar with, without even us probably knowing it was called a mudra, is called the Gaian Mudra, which is where you bring your index finger and your thumb together and the rest of your fingers out like this, okay? We all associate that with meditation, and that's exactly what it is. This is the mudra recommended for use during meditation because it provides a soothing, calming effect on the mind, all right? So, it's interesting to me that this shifts very easily into the okay. I'm okay because I am calm and centered. That's probably where that came from. It's also known to help relieve stress. All right, so the next one, I'm not going to go over all of them. There's a bunch of them, but I'm just going to give you a few. The next one's called the Prana Mudra, and this is where you touch the tip of your thumb to the tip of your ring finger and your pinky with your other two straight out. This is known as an immune-boosting mudra designed to keep the mind and body free of disease. Next is the Varun Mudra. It's very similar to the Prana Mudra. You just release your ring finger and keep your thumb and that's kind of difficult to do. Keep your thumb and your pinky finger touching. It's difficult, okay? Now, this one, because the pinky finger represents water, this mudra is believed to assist in maintaining the proper fluid balance in your body, leading to the healing of many skin conditions and giving your skin a natural glow. So if you want your skin to glow, do this Varun Mudra. Something okay, so before we go on, let me just say, again, there's no specific power in these, but what it's doing is it's harnessing the power of your mind into something concrete. If you decide this particular finger represents this, and this particular finger represents this, then when you put them together, what that's doing is that's giving your mind something to focus on to help you concentrate on what it is you're trying to manifest. It's all about imagination and manifestation. So another thing that's very similar to this practice of mudras is something that I believe originated in Japan called Jin Shin Jitsu. And I'm going to read you a little bit about that now. Now, again, it's using your hand, taking it from a little bit different perspective, coming at it from a different angle. It says, many talk about the Jin Shin Jitsu finger method, but what is it? And why do I feel better when I hold one of my thumbs or fingers? When my stomach hurts, I hold one of my thumbs. Within seconds to minutes, it's gone. When I feel my muscles are tense, I hold my index finger, and soon I can feel my body relaxing, easing, releasing the tension. Now, do you think this works unless you believe in it? No. But if you believe in it, that's what I'm saying. It's just giving you something to focus on, to focus your concentration on self-healing and self-care. Jin Shin Jitsu is a universal art available to each one of us from the moment we come into this world. It is a part of our human makeup. The basis of this form of self-help is our thumb and fingers. We all hold our fingers to help ourselves. Babies do it when they suck their thumbs. Sucking the thumb helps regenerate the baby's energy, eases their tummies, and soothes their nerves. Our energy body is made up of 144,000 functions. There are energy pathways like rivers connecting us from head to toe. Now, these are also called meridians, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. All those energy pathways are found in the hands, okay? This is why holding our fingers helps us so much. The energy of each finger relates to an attitude. So when we feel worry, we can hold our thumb to calm our mind. When we feel fear, anxiety, or nervousness, we can hold the index finger to calm our nervous system. To harmonize anger, hold up the middle finger. Now, it's interesting that your middle finger is your anger finger, and we all know why that's symbolic, okay? Sadness or grief is eased by holding the ring finger, and holding the little or pinky finger helps when we feel we are efforting or trying too hard in life. For instance, when we're trying too hard to please someone or to please everybody. You can do these exercises anywhere and at any time that your hands are free. Just wrap your right hand around the thumb or a finger of the left hand. Relax both hands and hold. For best results, sit comfortably and close your eyes. By holding each thumb and finger in turn, you can calm the mind, smooth out the nervous system, and regenerate your whole body. Now, again, I think this is probably more about just sitting with your eyes closed and being calm. But holding your fingers just helps you give yourself to remember, okay, when I'm angry, I hold this finger until my anger goes away. All right, so the last practice in this vein that I want to talk about is something I've done a little bit of study on called energy medicine, and it is based on the meridian system that they were talking about, these energy lines that go all through your body. They all start and end in your hands and then and in your feet as well. The particular practice I'm going to share with you today was developed by a woman named Lauren Walker. She says one of the energy systems of the body that most people are familiar with is meridians. Those come from ancient Chinese medicine. They are pathways in the body where energy runs. The meridians run deep inside the body and then come close to the surface of the skin in points. These points along the skin are called acupuncture or acupressure points. That's where we get the practices of both of those disciplines. Stimulating these different points in different locations gets energy moving along these meridian pathways, which run through every organ and all through the body. Not only do the meridians affect the physical body, but they affect the mental and emotional body as well. Each meridian governs an emotion along with the physical part of the body that it governs. So even without knowing each of the emotions, getting the meridian energy running smoothly will also help smooth the flow of emotions in the body, leading you to feel calmer and clearer. You don't need to learn the entire path of each meridian or the thousands of points on the skin in order to be able to affect the flow of energy in the meridians. And we've talked about that before, just keeping your channel clear. Now, the basis behind this is she says that she believes, and this discipline believes, that all pain in our body is related to energy that is stuck somewhere in some organ, and then they have this elaborate coordination of which organ is which emotion, which, again, you don't have to know all that to do this. It says each of the 12 meridians has a start and an end point on the hands or the feet. By activating or clearing those points, you have a potent tool for opening, activating, and energizing the meridians. Now, this is very similar to what we've studied before about the chakras. The chakras go down the center of the body. These meridians are on the outer or the periphery of your body. This is achieved by a practice called Gait Clearing. You can do it on both your hands and feet, but we're going to talk today about the hands. And the main idea here, again, is when you feel pain in a certain area, it's alerting you that you have some stuck energy somewhere, and depending on what particular finger or meridian it's on, that's where your problem is originating. So to clear the gates, you massage your hands beginning at the wrist, going down each finger and kind of pinching it off at the end to symbolize clearing out the energy. The pinky finger is the meridian connected to your small intestine and your heart. So presumably, if there's pain there, it is originating somewhere in your digestive system or your heart, in those organs. Your ring finger meridian is connected to your triple warmer, which I had to look up what that meant. It's connected to your wisdom teeth as well as to your down the back of your neck and your spine. Your middle finger meridian is your reproductive organs and your circulatory system. Your index finger is your large intestine, and your thumb is connected to your lungs. All right, now, so those are all just, like I said, they're permission slips that we have to just self-care. take care of yourself, which that's the bottom line. We need to be responsible for our own energy. And these are just a couple of ways throughout the centuries that man has come up with. Again, they're all man-made. They're all just permission slips or ways in which we can take care of ourselves and connect to spirit and to keep our channel open with him. These are all just little practices we can sit and do to get our imaginations flowing in the right way to manifest what we want as far as self-healing and self-care goes. All right, now I'm going to move on to a talk that was really interesting to me by a man named Alan Pease about body language, specifically the body language of, you guessed it, the hands. So he comes out and he immediately asks the audience to join him in an exercise where they are supposed to shake hands with their neighbor until he tells them to stop, at which point he wants them to freeze so he can analyze what's happening. So the first thing he points out is that if one person's hand is obviously kind of in the top position over the others, they're probably the more dominant of the two people. Did you know that? I mean, some people do that on purpose, but sometimes just when you shake somebody's hand, it just automatically happens that the one with the more dominant personality, their hand will tend to turn over onto the top. Later on, he'll explain where this came from and why this is. But for the moment, he goes on to some interesting information. He says, within the first 4 minutes of meeting someone, you pretty much form 80% of your attitude toward them, whether you're going to continue listening to them or tune them out. Then he goes on to describe 3 gut feelings you get when you shake someone's hand for the first time. The first gut feeling you can get from a handshake is pretty good. I think I'll be able to get along with this person pretty well. If it's a business situation, you think you're going to be pretty equitable, that you trust them. You trust them enough to do business with them. The second gut feeling you can have from an initial handshake is, I'm a little intimidated. I don't really trust this person to respect me or respect my well-being or my boundaries. That's someone that comes on a little too strong with their grip. The third feeling you can get from an initial handshake is that the other person is weaker than you and you can easily manipulate them. So you have to decide at that point whether you're going to or not. So he goes on to explain that this gut feeling you get from a handshake is based on 2 things, basically. The angle of the hand and the power of force that the handshake is given. So then he goes back and explains where this top position of the hand, being the more dominant person, comes from. Okay, remember I said he'd come back to that. So our current form of handshaking, we do like this, kind of straight on, like this. But that's only been the custom for about 2,000 years. If you go back to Roman times, when Roman leaders of military forces would meet each other, they did more like, their handshake was more, I can't really do it with myself, but you know, like in the 70s when they did the right on, you know, you did it wasn't a shake, it was like, shake it like that. Yeah, like this. I can't do it with a mic in my hand, but you know what I'm talking about. So that's how they would do it. It was more like an arm wrestle grip. And that's exactly what it was, okay? Because when they would grip hands, they would literally try to force the other hand over. And so the man who had the upper hand, that's where it comes from, was decided he was the stronger. And that's where the whole concept of having the upper hand comes from. So instead of standing, it said the Romans used to do this squatting, and actually it was a modified form of arm wrestling. So now, even though the hand position of our modern handshake is a little different, this is where that gut feeling comes from when someone shakes our hands. They're either their hand intentionally or inadvertently ends up on top. We know to be on our guard a little bit because they are either intentionally trying to intimidate us or they're just a stronger, more dominant person, and that kind of lets us know, hey, you need to be on your guard a little bit around this person and not let them manipulate you. So then he goes into some even more interesting information. He says there are more connections between your brain and the palms of your hands than any other body part. So clearly, Palms have evolved as a very important part of human beings, and therefore, where they are, the position they're in as you're talking, has a lot to do with how people view you, how they accept what you're saying, and how willing they are going to be to cooperate with you. And most of us never pay any attention to this. I know I really didn't, but a whole lot is going on the subconscious level with your hands when you speak. So then he did a little demonstration where he said the same thing 3 times to the audience in the same tone of voice, and all he did was change the position of his hands. And basically the point he was trying to make was open, upward-facing palms are inviting and non-threatening. If you speak a lot like this, you're inviting people in. People want to cooperate with you because you're not threatening them. Downward-facing palms, if you talk a lot like this, which it was interesting because I went back after I watched this and watched some of my videos, and I didn't realize I do a lot of outward facing, which means I'm gonna be real honest here, which probably means I think I'm smarter than because I'm like this is what. So I'm gonna have to consciously try to be more inviting with my hand signals. Okay, I bet you never knew a lot of that. So downward facing palms make people feel as if they're being given an order, okay? And it makes them less likely to want to cooperate with you. If you point your finger a lot, which I did that a little bit too when I look back at myself speaking, it makes people feel as if they are being given no choice and elicits an even stronger feeling of resistance from them. So they've done studies showing that people who position their hands invitingly get their message across better because their audience is actually listening to more of what they're saying than judging the person. That was interesting too. They said people, when they either point a lot or use downward palms, people tend to judge them rather than listen to what they're saying. Okay, interesting. So then he moved on to information, the next piece of information that you can exert 4 times more force with your hand going down than pulling up, okay? So this palm down position, that's why it's often seen as a power signal. And then he went on to, what do we think of when we see this? Even in our military, it's palms down when we salute. It's not quite as severe as this, but it's this. So palm up seems to signal surrender, submission, invitation. Palm down, power. He concludes by saying that your body language is an outward manifestation of your inner emotional state. It tends to show how you are feeling. So this also works in reverse. If you'd like to adjust how you're feeling, you can intentionally change your body language and your emotions will eventually follow. For instance, this hand position reflects confidence. Right here. So some people do this naturally, but if you don't feel very confident, if you'll just put your hands together in a little bit, your emotions will, yeah, okay, I do know what I'm talking about. So this is a confidence position of your hands. I also heard a woman speak about this once. She was saying that when she was afraid, she was a very small, petite woman. And so she said whenever she was afraid that she would try to widen her stance and take up a little bit more space or put her hands on her hips and in that Superman pose. And she said literally it did make her feel a little bit more powerful because of the way she stood. If you'll notice, if you've been paying attention, Vice President Kamala Harris, number one, I've never seen the woman in a dress. I'm sure she wears them, but I think she wears pants on purpose for that reason. And when you see her standing, I was taught by my mother, who is, the quintessential Southern belle. I was taught when you stand, you put your heel of your foot into the arch of your other foot and kind of angle. It's the pageant stance, Randy. Women are supposed to stand in the pageant stance, but that's not how Vice President Harris stands. She stands with her feet a little bit apart usually, and it looks like the military rest position. And I'm sure she has learned over the years to do that purposely because as a woman, she's not taken as seriously on face value in the positions she's been in as a man would be. So she does her body language on purpose to command a little bit more respect. And that's what this is all talking about here. So That's also why we as parents are also always telling our children to stand up straight, poke your chest out, have your chin up, because it really does matter. I mean, have you seen kids, you see a kid sitting around, they don't look like they're about much. But if a child is standing up straight and looking straight in your eyes, it conveys something about what's on the inside of them. So all this stuff is important. The bottom line is we get to choose which comes first and which follows. Are we going to let our body language flow from what we're feeling, even if we're not feeling on top of things? Or when we're not feeling on top of things, are we going to be conscious enough to switch up our body language so that our emotions will kind of get in line with our body language? So that's just a little pro tip for creating your own reality. It's also why, incidentally, why men tend to man-spread. Have you heard about that? You know, men, when they sit down in an area, they take up a lot of space. You know, they have their and women are the opposite. They kind of try to cross their legs and not not insert themselves in your space too much. Men don't care about inserting themselves into your space. They are space invaders. But that is a topic for another day. All right. So, winding this down now. I hope you have enjoyed learning a little more about our hands today. And the thought that I want you to take away with you is this concept of symbolically and energetically washing our hands. As I said, we're all washing our hands a lot more now, and special attention is being given to that act of washing our hands. Even that act right now is an act of protection. That's something else that we do with our hands. We protect. Washing our hands often right now is protecting ourselves as well as other people we come in contact with. So as we do it, as we wash our hands, let's do it consciously and mindfully. And every time we physically wash our hands, let's ask ourselves the important questions that I read to you earlier from Barbara Goldsmith. How are we using these incredible instruments we've been given, our hands? Are we using them to fight one another? Are we balling them up in fists ready to strike? Are we pointing our fingers with them, blaming others for anything and everything that's wrong with our society? Or are we using them to heal each other, to lift each other up, to invite each other to be part of the conversation? Are we using them to include? As she also said here, until such a time as we can actually touch each other again, let's use this time to become more conscious of the ways in which we are using our hands. So there are two songs that I'm sure there are many more, but there are two songs that I'm aware of that have the title Hands. And I want to end today by reading you some of the lyrics to those songs because both are quite beautiful and meaningful. The first, I don't know who exactly it was written by, but the video was sponsored and produced by an organization called GLAAD, which is Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. And this song was written in response to the shooting that happened in Orlando in 2016 at the Pulse nightclub, where 49 people were killed in a terrible act of hate and violence. So in this video, I found that it was also quite significant because the lyrics were written on the palms of people's hands, and as the song was being sung, they were showing the lyrics with their hands. It's a very powerful video if you get a chance to watch it. So here are some of the lyrics. It says, hands, they can hold a gun, or they can hold your heart. They can put out fires or make them start. Skin and bones, flesh and blood, with all these nerves, how did we get this numb? They can hurt or they can heal. They can give back or they can steal. They can break the world, but they can change it too. Hands, they can give or they can take. They can fight or they can save. They can break the world. They can change it too. It doesn't matter who you love. All that matters is that you love. I've been watching news, seeing all this hate. Tell me, is it wrong to want a little change? They can hurt or they can heal. They can give back or they can steal. They can break the world, but they can change it too. If 1,000,000 hands can build a wall, 1,000,000 hands can break it down. All that matters is that you love. Believe in a world without walls, accept that together we are better. It doesn't matter who you are or who you love. Accelerate acceptance and end hate. So that was that song. Then the next one, the very last song, is a song by a woman named Jewel. And it speaks about the fact that even though her hands are small, they are her hands. And she's not going to use her hands in the exact way somebody else uses their hands. But it's her way to use her hands. That's right. That's the song I'm going to quote from. My hands are small, but don't ever think that your actions, what you do with your hands, don't make a difference in the collective. It says, if I could tell the world just one thing, it would be that we're all okay and not to worry. Because worry is wasteful and useless in times like these. I won't be made useless. I won't be idle with despair. I will gather myself around my faith, for light does the darkness most fear. We'll fight, not out of spite, for someone must stand up for what's right. 'Cause where there's a man who has no voice, there I shall go singing. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. In the end, only kindness matters. Only kindness matters. I will get down on my knees and I will pray. We are God's eyes, God's mind, God's hands. Amen.
Let the church say amen. Amen. That was so good. My sister and I, when either of us is speaking, we're sitting there finishing each other's sentences the whole time. That's the power of synchronicity. She was sharing about different approaches to healing the body, energy, how hands are used, and she just went through a plethora of different expressions. And I was reminded of the song, "Go on and do it, do it." Do it till you're satisfied, whatever it is. Anybody remember that? Anybody go back that long? Yeah. It really doesn't matter how it doesn't matter how you get there. Just get there if you can. However you use your hands, there's not an appropriate way. The appropriate way is that it comes from your heart. I remember I was speaking to someone one time, and we were having a wonderful conversation. We were connecting, we were listening, actively listening, engaging. But I was kind of standing with my arm like that, and they go, I don't like your body language. It makes me feel like you don't want to talk to me because your arms are crossed. And I was like, okay, well, I'm never going to talk to you again now. I have back fatigue. I'm constantly having to try to, rest my back because when I run, my back doesn't hurt. If I stand too long, my back really starts hurting. And I find that if I can get my elbow or my hand under my elbow, it kind of relieves some of the tension in my back. But because my body language wasn't what they wanted, I was like, note to self, I ain't never talking to your ass again. Go on somewhere. But it is not always about the body language. It is about the condition of the heart. Is it about baptism? No, it is about the condition of the heart. Is it about which holy book you read? No, it's about connecting to love, to God, to each other. And so in that frame, I was just enthralled with the teaching. Can medicine, think about these questions and we'll let you go. Can medicine and a holistic approach coexist? Do we have to be all medicine or all herbs? Can they hold hands? Can medicine and faith live in the same house? If you're watching the tournament right now, Oral Roberts University has shocked the world. Oral Roberts was a faith healer who built a hospital. Now think about that contradiction. He laid his hands on so many people to pray for them that he had 7 shoulder operations to repair his ligaments in his shoulder from reaching his hands out to pray for people. This man, reaching his hand out, built a hospital for scientists, doctors, research, cancer patients. Yes, God heals, but we also make room for science. Can faith and science get along? Can we believe? Think about this, our New Thought listeners. Can we believe that God is our helper and also wake up to our own power of creativity? Yeah. We can believe that having done all that I can do with my creation, I also surrender to a creator helping me along my way. Those things are not counteractive, and so they can all live together. I talk a lot with my hands. I do all kinds, so I don't know what all that means. But I will say this. Sometimes your hands may be the only hands of God that anyone ever feels. Okay, it's hard sometimes for people who are a little reluctant to religion or spirituality or anything like that. Your hands extended may be the only hand of God they ever feel. Someone said to me one time, "You are the only Bible someone may ever read." What does that mean? They're not going to sit there and read page after page after page, but they may experience you. They may read you as the Bible, the love that you show them. You may be the only church someone ever experiences. They may never connect to a spiritual community, but the way we make people feel when we're with them, that may be the only really worship experience that some people ever get to experience. And so our hands may be small, they may be big, but they are our hands, and they are used the way that God has positioned them to be used. And so Brandy got crazy busy today with her work and was not able to send us names. So we want to give shouts out to everybody who's listening today. We love you guys. We look forward to connecting with you again. Tomorrow night, we continue in Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And then Sunday morning is Palm Sunday with the triumphal entry. I'm excited to celebrate Sunday morning. We're sending you a letter, hopefully today or tomorrow. It should get to you by the weekend. But that letter is going to lay out for you kind of some instructions over Palm Sunday, Easter, and then the month of April. And we're opening the door a little bit more widely as we have a 600-seat building, and I don't think we've had on any Sunday during COVID more than about 40 people attending. And so even if we doubled that, we would still have plenty of room for everybody to social distance. And so we're glad for you guys to come out and be a part of that. So look for the letter in the mail, and then we'll see you tomorrow night. Reconnect with you on Sunday morning. Go in peace, and may God bless you.